I'm going to read from Psalm 77. So you can pull it out if you have a Bible on you. It says, I cried out to God for help. I cried out to God to hear me. When I was in distress, I sought the Lord. At night, I stretched out untiring hands, and I would not be comforted. I remembered you, God, and I groaned. I meditated, and my spirit grew faint. You kept my eyes from closing. I was too troubled to speak. I thought about the former days, the years of long ago. I remembered my songs in the night. My heart meditated, and my spirit asked, will the Lord reject me forever? Will he never show his favor again? Has his unfailing love vanished forever? Has his promise failed for all time? Has God forgotten to be merciful? Has he in anger withheld his compassion? Then I thought, to this I will appeal. The years when the Most High stretched out his right hand. I will remember the deeds of the Lord. Yes, I will remember your miracles of long ago. I will consider all your works and meditate on all your mighty deeds. Your ways, God, are holy. What God is as great as our God? You are the God who performs miracles. You display your power among the peoples. With your mighty arm you redeemed your people, the descendants of Jacob and Joseph. The waters saw you, God. The waters saw you and writhed. The very depths were convulsed. The clouds poured down water. The heavens resounded with thunder. Your arrows flashed back and forth. Your thunder was heard in the whirlwind. Your lightning lit up the world. The earth trembled and quaked. Your path led through the sea, your way through the mighty waters, though your footprints were not seen. You led your people like a flock by the hand of Moses and Aaron.
Well, thanks. Thank you, and thank you for worshiping and leading us so far, worship team. Hey, my name's David. I'm one of the pastors here, and we want to welcome you today to our church, whether you're in the room or visiting, or maybe this is the first time checking out church online or in the room. We're so glad you're here. And we're starting a new teaching series for the summer today. So we're pressing pause on our series in the Gospel of Mark. And for all you young ones, that's a cassette tape. You're like, I know of CDs, but I don't know what this thing is. This is a cassette tape. Some of us who are a little older will remember those things. They were revolutionary at their time, but they quickly became frustrating. Hopefully today will not be frustrating for you. But we're starting our new summer teaching series, and we're going to spend the next 2 months in a series called Summer Playlist, where we're going to explore the songs and prayers of ancient Israel as found in the Old Testament book of Psalms. I love the book of Psalms. It is one of the best books in the Bible. It's like a soundtrack of God's people that spans like approximately 1,000 years of Israel's life with God. And in them, you get every single human experience and emotion under the sun. You get everything from joy to sorrow, to the highest heights of worship and exaltation of God, to the deepest valley and the feelings and the words that are put in that place, to worship, to grief, to sadness, to fear, to joy, and everything in between. The Psalms give us a glimpse into the real lives of real people. If you feel it or you walk through it, there's a psalm for it, which makes the Psalms an amazing resource for God's people and a perfect book for us to create a summer playlist to be the soundtrack of our summer as a community. So this is where we're headed over the next 10 weeks. We're going to look at 10 different Psalms, and we're going to bring those together and create one playlist to define this summer as a community. Are you guys ready? All right. Let's dive in. If you haven't already got there, get to Psalm 77. We're going to start reading in verse 1. It says, I cried out to God for help. I cried out to God to hear me. When I was in distress, I sought the Lord. At night, I stretched out untiring hands and would not be comforted. I remembered you, God, and I groaned. I meditated, and my spirit grew faint. You kept my eyes from closing. I was too troubled to speak. This is the prayer of a man named Asaph. He was a peer of the famous King David. He was actually named one of the chief worship leaders in the temple, and his generations of family served God in the temple and helped lead worship. And this is not a tame prayer, is it? It's raw. It's unfiltered. There's nothing that is held back. It's like Asaph is ripping open his chest, pulling out everything that he is feeling inside and laying it before God. And this is not the type of like summer playlist prayer or song that you normally associate with a summer playlist. See, typically a summer playlist is a curated list of songs where you bring together songs that kind of bring out the vibe of summer. They're often associated with the unique activities of summer. They're the songs that you listen to on a road trip with your friends or on a beach day as you're, sitting in the sun and sitting in the sand. They're the songs that play in the background as you sit around the campfire with friends and family or when you're on the patio in a warm summer evening. They're the music that accompanies vacations and lake days, evenings in the sun and ice cream runs after dinner. I mean, mostly summer playlists are associated with good vibes, good times, and good memories. So reading a prayer from a man who is in distress and is desperate for God to answer his prayer kind of feels like out of tune, like my singing, kind of out of step with the summer vibes that we normally associate with a summer playlist. I mean, listen to his prayer. He starts out with crying out to God twice. Whenever you see repetition in the Psalms or in Hebrew poetry, it's a sign of emphasis and an intensification. It's like this is something that really need to lean into, that there's this desperation in Asaph for God to hear his cry and for God to show up and help him. He's crying out to God in prayer. He's telling God what he's feeling. And look at what he's feeling. He's not feeling good. He's in distress. He's like, God, I'm in distress. I can't find any comfort or peace. I feel weak. My spirit is deeply troubled. I can't sleep. I can't speak. This is someone who is desperate for something to change, who's experiencing distress internally and something happening outside of him that is causing him to feel this kind of distress. His situation is desperate, and the question that immediately comes to mind is, what is going on for Asaph? Like, what is making Asaph so desperate and filled with such despair? Well, the answer is that Asaph, as much as he wants to, he can't seem to find God in this situation. He's looking for God. He's crying out to God. He's reaching out for God. But when he does so, God's not there. God's seemingly absent. He's praying, but he gets no answer. He seeks comfort, but he's not finding any. I mean, you could sum up the first 4 verses of this prayer as this, like, God, where are you? I need you. I want you. I can't make it without you. Why aren't you answering me? Have you ever prayed that prayer? Because I sure have. I prayed it a lot over the last few months. I don't know if you remember, but in the fall I mentioned just the toll the last 4 years have taken on me and my family. We have gone through a lot of different things over the last 4 years, and it was like one after the other with no break, no time to process, no time to recover. Both our boys struggled really deeply, so bad that they couldn't even get to school for large portions of time. And we had to rearrange our life so that we could actually take care of our kids and shepherd them through this really dark time. My wife's mom passed away, and right after, it was like Kath held on until we got through the funeral, and as soon as the funeral ended, her body just shut down and she burnt out and she fell apart physically. And so I'm watching the 3 people that I love the most in the entire world suffer, struggle. And I just kind of made this decision that I have to put my well-being and what I need to do and what I need to do to take care of myself on hold. And so I just set about just taking care of my family and putting their well-being ahead of my own, just trying so hard to make sure that they got better. And thankfully, by the grace of God and through months of work, they are doing better. Praise God for that. And then the fall hit. and I fell apart. It was like everything that had gone on and all the anxiety and the fear watching the people I love the most struggle just hit me. And it's like I hit a wall and my body just went offline. I was really struggling. That's the place I was in the fall. And I realize now as I'm walking through this is that by doing the right thing, by putting my family first, I actually never took care of myself. And so it was like my body went offline. I was exhausted. I just felt emotionally empty. Grief and sadness were overwhelming. And I had to lean in hard because my temptation was to run away from the pain I was feeling. And I determined with God's help that I wasn't going to do that. And I can tell you something, I'm such at peace in this season. I'm not out of it yet. But I believe God has led me into this season because what he wants to do is heal, and he also wants me on the other side of this season to have something richer and deeper with him that I could never have if I just ran away and ignored it, and then he wants to make me a more whole and healthy husband, father, and leader. It's a good thing, as hard as it is. And I can remember over and over and over again praying prayers like Asaph, God, where are you? Why are you not answering my prayers to make things better? Do your job better. I don't recommend praying that. But that's what I was feeling in those moments. I was upset, I was angry, I was exhausted. I let God have it. And so I resonate with Asaph. I'm sure some of you resonate too with the same kinds of feelings and experiences. Because sometimes doesn't it feel like God is not there and he's not listening? Asaph is having this kind of experience, and it's very disorienting and painful and confusing when you walk through those moments. And Asaph, he's in that moment as he's praying this prayer. He's wrestling with God's apparent absence and silence when what he needs more than anything is God to feel and be present and for God to answer his prayers, for God to speak into the void. And we are brought to the center of this struggle in verse 3. When he prays, I remembered you, God, and I groaned. See, often remembering, we're going to come back to this later, remembering is the key to this psalm. And oftentimes, remembering God is going to renew our faith, is going to strengthen our trust in him, and it will at the end of this psalm. But in this moment, it causes Asaph to groan because he's reflecting on his past experiences with God. When God moved in the past, when God did things in the past, he's reflecting on what he knows to be true about God, and he's experiencing the gap between that and what he is actually living and experiencing in the present. And that causes him to groan, to feel distress, despair. Is that what I know to be true about God is not my experience of God in this moment. There's a gap between his knowledge of God and his lived experience, and this gap feeds his despair. Because what is true of God? God is always present with us. Theologically, that's called omnipresence, that God is everywhere at all times. It's a theological reality. It's also a promise of God in the scriptures. One of the defining characteristics of Israel was the fact that Yahweh was their God. At one point, Moses is praying, the leader of Israel. He's praying and talking to God, and God's like, I'm not going any further with this stubborn people. And Moses says something to the effect of, if you don't go, we lose everything that defines us and stands us out from every other nation in the world. So we know that what is true is that God is always present with us, but Asaph is experiencing God's absence. We know what is true is that God is kind and compassionate and steadfast in love, and Asaph is experiencing no love in this moment or kindness or compassion from God. We know God is a promise keeper, that what he says he's going to do, he will do, just a matter of time. But Asaph is feeling like God's not keeping his promises to his people. And this gap creates a spiritual disorientation and confusion. And so it's no wonder then that Asaph begins to have doubts and he starts questioning God in verses 5 to 9. The questions just pour out of him. He's like, God, are you going to reject me forever? Will you never be kind to me again? Has your love for me finally come to its end? Have you forgotten how to show mercy, God? Is the door to your compassion finally closed? Have I used it all up? Are your promises never going to come true, God? He just peppers God with question after question. And again, silence. Like, I don't know about you, but I read this and I feel the desperation coming off the pages. I feel the desperation of Asaph to have God feel close and for God to answer. He's wrestling. Do you feel the wrestle? This is someone like reaching out to God for help and desperately trying to find him in the middle of a storm. It reminds me of a time when I was with my kids. We were playing at a playground, and all of a sudden, it just started hailing like crazy, like the big, big pieces of hail, and it came down, and they were a bit younger, and so they had never experienced hail before, and so they were completely overwhelmed. And we're at the park, and I've got 2 scooters, 2 helmets, and 2 kids who are crying as if they were being stung by like 100 bees. And we're far from our home. And so I gather up in one hand all the scooters and the helmets, and I take my other hand around the boys, and we're walking back to our house, and we go by the staircase that goes down into our townhouse complex, and this lady's at her window, and she's cleaning dishes, and she hears the cries, and she's like, "Are you okay?" And I'm like, "We're fine, it's just the hail, I'm taking care of it, but thank you." And I had to usher them home, and we get home, and I just wrapped my arms around the boys, and they wept. And they just peppered me with questions like, "Dad, why was that? What was that? Why did that happen? Why did you do that to us, Dad?" And I'm like, "I don't have any control over the weather." Now, can you imagine in that moment if I, as a dad, looked at the kids and said, "Stop feeling that way"? Or I just said to them, "Hey, stop asking questions. Just stop." And just totally smothered them. Can you imagine a good father or a good parent doing that in that moment? What does a good father or a good parent do? Even when it doesn't make sense to the kids, you hold them and you listen to them, and that's enough in that moment. So when we don't feel God or we can't make sense of it and we're peppering him with questions, we may not know, but our God is there and he's holding us. And he's going to listen to what you have to bring him. He wants you to bring that to him. So how do you envision God reacting when you have questions and doubts, or when you are angry, or you're upset, or you're struggling, or you feel anxious, or you feel down? How do you think God reacts? I think he's a good father. And I think he holds us. And I think he feels what we feel with us. I think that's who God is. He's present with you, even when you don't feel it. He listens to you. Even if you never have any evidence that he's ever heard you, he's listening to you. Think about that. The God of the universe bends his ear to listen to you when you are in distress. Now, take note of 2 things before we go any further. Number 1, do not shy away from what you feel. I'm going to say it again. Do not shy away from what you feel. What you feel is a God-given gift. Emotions are a God-given gift. And they are a beautiful guide that can lead us to God, help us understand what is going on in us and how we are interpreting our experience of life. And they are able to help us put language to the prayers that we pray. Do not shy away from your feelings. In the church, we want to be anchored in the truth of God. But then sometimes we say you can't trust your feelings. And you know what? You need to measure your feelings against the truth of God. But you need to listen to what you're feeling and not run from it. Don't try to bury it. Don't try to ignore it. Don't try to spiritually bypass it by using Scripture. If you read the Psalms, you are given emotion for a reason, to bring it to God and to process it with him in prayer. Don't shy away from your feelings. Do not be afraid of your feelings. Measure them against the anchor of Scripture, but don't hide or ignore your feelings. Asaph just brings it to God, and he's like, God, this is what I'm feeling. And God takes it because he's a big boy. He can handle your prayers. That's the first thing. You don't need to fear your feelings. They are actually guides to help you understand what your experience of the world that you're living in and what's happening to you, and they are guides that help you put language to the prayers that you pray. That's the first thing. The second thing is Asaph has a healthy response to what he's going through. He's doing the right thing. I mean, he's turning to God. He's bringing his burden to God, asking him for help. That's a good thing. And you and I, we need to learn from Asaph, because what we tend to do is God is a last resort, not our first resort. And we tend to turn to things other than God in order to help us manage and deal with the pain or the hardships or the stresses that we feel. And they can be big things like alcohol, or substances, or pornography, or excessive exercising, or putting a mask on and pretending like you're okay when you actually are not. Not allowing people to see the real you because you come into the walls of the church and you start to perform. What's one of the number one ways we respond to the question, how are you doing? I'm fine. I'm busy. Maybe I'm busy. What does that really tell anybody? We're all busy. See, we can turn to our social media. Your phone's a pain number, an escape tactic. When you're waiting in line and you go like this on your phone, you're just numbing yourself. You're not being aware and available to the present, to what God might be inviting you into. You're trying to numb the pain. When you go and turn and you binge watch Netflix, hey, don't get me wrong, I love binge watching Netflix. Like, give me a great, British detective show, I'm gonna binge watch that baby. But it's not a healthy response when you're trying to escape or numb the pain you feel. It's just not. Let me see, this is a psalm of lament. Lament is a healthy response in a world that is not as it should be. See, I don't have to convince you, this world doesn't function the way it should be. We all feel it, whether you believe in Jesus or not, that there is some sense in us that the world should be something different, and it's currently not, and there's an ache in us for that world. And when we are encountering the things of this world that make us aware that the world is not as it should be, there is a healthy response, and Asaph models it. It is to turn to God and bring him your emotional weight and stuff. I want you to hear me. Spiritual maturity is not pretending you have it all together when you really don't. Spiritual maturity is acknowledging how you're feeling, how you're really doing, and bringing that to God and pouring it out to him. I love what Pastor Rich Villodas says. He says, lamenting is the spiritually mature response to sadness and sorrow. Our spiritual aliveness is not found in our ability to suppress our sadness. Our spiritual aliveness is found in our ability to bring it to God. You don't win a medal for pretending like you're better than you are. Lament gives us a healthy way to process what we are feeling and going through. It gives us a healthy way to bring our pain and the stuff to God. And that's what Asaph is doing. He's putting to words what he is feeling on the inside, what he's experiencing around him in a world where things are not as they should be. And so that's where he begins. But if you notice, the psalm doesn't end at verse 9. It continues in verse 10. Look at how it continues. It says, then I thought. That word then is the switch. It's the hinge upon which this psalm operates. And he goes on and he says, to this I will appeal, the years when the Most High stretched out his right hand. I will remember the deeds of the Lord. Yes, I will remember your miracles of long ago. I will consider all your works and meditate on all your mighty deeds. Your ways, God, are holy. What God is as great as our God? You are the God who performs miracles. You display your power among the peoples. With your mighty arm, you redeem your people, the descendants of Jacob and Joseph. Lament never ends with your pain, but it ends with remembering. Notice how he begins to remember. How many words or times in the last 10 verses we read words like remember or meditate or consider. Those are all words that say I'm calling to mind something. I'm bringing to the forefront of my attention something. I'm thinking deeply upon this. And so what is Asaph bringing to the forefront of his mind? He brings the person, character, and past work of God to mind. His prayer begins with despair, but his destination is God. Two movements. First, despair. This is what I'm going through. This is what I'm experiencing. But then his language changes. His whole perspective begins to change. He starts to become preoccupied, not with the situation he's in, but he becomes preoccupied with who God is. And there's a huge difference. First, he remembers who God is in verses 10 to 14. He says, God, you're holy, and your ways, all your ways are holy. He's like, God, I remember you're good to the core. There is not a stain or spot of darkness or evil or ungoodness in you. You're completely good to the core. All your ways are good. Even if I don't grasp them, even if I don't understand them, all your ways are good and have good intentions. He's like, God, you're someone I can trust. Someone I can rely on to do the right thing. I believe you're for me, God, and not against me. And then he's like starts talking about the greatness of God. And he's like, God, you are great. There's no God like you. There is no rival nor equal in all of creation to your beauty, to your majesty, to your holiness, to the power that you have to do things that nobody else can do. Like there's no one like God, Asaph is remembering. He's like, nothing stops your plans. Nothing can turn you aside from your purposes for your people, for the world, for history. He's like, you can't be stopped. You've done powerful things in the past and you can do them again. He's like, you've done miracles. You've done displays of power amongst your people. And then he starts talking about how God's redeemed his people. He's remembering not just who God is, but he's like what God has powerfully already done. He's filling his mind with God, with realities and truths about who God is. He's leading his heart, his mind, his whole vision, his whole experience by remembering and thinking deeply upon who God is and what God has done. So he starts with remembering who God is, and then he continues by remembering what God has done. And in verses 16 to 20, he remembers redemption. He remembers in a poetic way the defining moment of rescue that God had orchestrated for an enslaved people in Egypt. He starts bringing to mind the time when God's people, after 400 years of slavery, probably for the 1,000th time, they cry out to God. They're groaning under the burden of the chains and the whips. And this time, God hears, God pays attention, and then he comes down to do something about it. He reveals himself to a guy named Moses at a burning bush, and he says, I've heard the cries of my people. Read about it, Exodus 3. I've heard their cries. They think I wasn't listening, but I've heard them, and now I'm coming to do something about it. And then God leads them out of slavery in Egypt, but then he brings them to a sea, the Red Sea, and in front of them is water, and behind them is the Egyptian army, and the people of God cry out again, like, you've led us here to die, Moses. And then God, in his power, parts the waters. And as Asaph remembers, he leads them through the sea, through the mighty waters, even though his footprints are not seen. So God is the one going before his people, and he leads them out of slavery into freedom and to a life with him on the other side of Egypt. This is Asaph anchoring his mind and his heart in God's powerful rescuing activity. The single greatest redemptive event in the life of Israel is he's drawing on it to renew his mind and trust in the God he was just questioning a few moments ago. This is the roadmap when you are experiencing a storm of life. The roadmap to remembering has 3 steps. Number 1, you turn to God in prayer. Not after you try something or someone else, but you turn to God in prayer. And then when you turn to God in prayer, you voice what you are feeling, and you don't hold back. You can write it down on a piece of paper. You can type it up on your computer. You can verbally shout it from the rooftops. You may get some strange looks, but you will be practicing lament. But honestly, bluntly, without a filter, give what you are carrying and feeling to God. He can take it. And then thirdly, remember who God is and what he's done. That's the roadmap. It's simple. It's not complex. Can I tell you, there is no shortcut. To remember who God is and what God has done requires you to bring him to the forefront and give him your attention. It requires you to think deeply, to consider who God is and what he's done, and that takes time. That means you may not get to binge watch Peaky Blinders. That means you may not get to, respond to all those messages on Instagram. It may not mean that you sleep in and hit snooze 6 times, but you get up an hour earlier before work so you can take time to consider who God is. Don't try for neat and tidy. Give yourself permission to be honest with God. Follow the example of Asaph, who begins with despair, but he has a destination in mind, and it is God. And so what we need to see is that lament is both a process and a destination, and ultimately lament is a journey towards trust. It's a journey towards trusting in the God who feels absent in that moment. It's a journey towards trusting in the one that you are praying to and asking to intervene, but for some reason he's choosing not to, or you're not aware of how he is doing that. It's a journey towards trusting and fueling faith that God is who he says he is and that he does keep every promise that he makes. It's just a matter of time. One more thing before we turn to communion. Asaph does all the right things and nothing changes. Do you notice that the psalm doesn't end with resolution? We don't find out, did God answer his prayer? Did God change his circumstances? Did God move in mighty power like he did in the past? Was this the moment when God was going to show up and be present again? Was this the moment where God was going to speak and he was going to comfort? We don't get any of that. All we are given is this remembering of God's redemptive work. All we are given is the reality of who God is. The circumstances that he is experiencing have not changed. God is still silent. And he doesn't seem to be doing anything, but hear me, Asaph's perspective in his circumstances has changed. Where he started with despair, he has now found his destination, and his destination is God. His trouble, his pains has faded into the background for the moment, and his vision is filled with God and his redemptive work in the Exodus. He's reminded himself that God, who has done it before, can do it again. It's just a matter of time. That's where his hope lies. That's where he puts his trust once again. And so trust, my friends, in your circumstances can be built by remembering who God is and what he has done. And I want us to specifically see in this psalm, it's specifically remembering God's rescuing power. It's specifically remembering that from God comes deliverance. From God comes freedom. For Israel, the defining moment of God's redemptive activity was the Exodus. For us, it's the cross of Jesus. My friends, God did it again. It was just a matter of time when Jesus, the second person of the Trinity, stepped into time, lived a human life, laid his life down in love on the cross, was buried, and 3 days later rose from the dead, and then 40 days later ascended to the right hand of the Father in heaven, where he rules and reigns in all creation. God did it again. It was just a matter of time. He rescued his people like he had before. It was just a matter of time. And today we get to celebrate communion as a way to remember that God has done it, that he has come and he has rescued, that he has come and rescued you, that when you did cry out to him, he answered and he rescued you out of slavery to sin, Satan, and death into a life with him. And so as we take communion today, we get to remember a body that was given and blood that was shed so that you and I could be more than conquerors through him who loved us. And so what we're going to do is we are going to invite the hosts up. They're going to, pass out the elements. And what I want you to do is the band sings and plays one song as we pass out the elements. I want you to hold the bread and the juice in your hand, and I want you to remember that Jesus has done it. That he humbled himself to the point of death for you and for me. That he took sin upon himself and broke its power so that you and I could have a life with God, both here and now and forever in the future, in a world where there is no storms anymore, no darkness, no pain, no evil, no mourning, nor crying, nor death, nor anything of that. There is a day coming when God is going to come back and finish what he started. And when we hold the bread and the juice in our hands, we remember what he has done in the past, and we remember that he's going to do it again. And so let's pray. And then I want you to also, as you remember his death for you, reflect, what can I bring to Jesus and lay before him? What am I carrying? What pain, sadness, hurt, whatever that is, what is it that you're carrying that you can bring to Jesus, lay before him, and then ask him, God, how can I trust you? How can I trust you?